Hey everybody, it's Miss C. So we are doing Composition Notes Part 3 today. Now we're starting to get into some of the more complex, hard to do compositional rules. So far, it's all been fairly simple to do. We know how to vary our sizes. We can repeat things pretty well without any trouble. Moving your focal point out of the middle isn't too difficult once you know where to put it. And of course, filling the space is super simple. But the next couple are a little bit more on the difficult side. So these ones, you'd probably get a little bit of gumption points for adding them into your particular image and your picture plane. So our first new rule is point of view. If you ever think about point of view as like from a reading standpoint, the point of view is like who are you like experiencing the reality of the book from? And in art, it's not too different. Basically, you kind of think of the artwork as being drawn from somebody's point of view, almost like you're using a camera. So if I'm using my camera on my phone and I'm just standing up normal and taking my picture kind of like this is a normal point of view. This is wherever this camera is, level with my eyeballs, nothing strange about it. So if I were to take a picture of this guy right here, and I were just taking a picture as I'm sitting with no change, that's a normal point of view. For point of view, the compositional rule, what it wants you to do is it wants you to change the camera angle away from eye level. Again, if we're looking at it from my point of view, if I'm using my phone camera right here, my phone camera, I'm holding it like so, sitting, looking exactly like normally would. Nothing is odd about how I'm sitting, nothing is odd about how I'm holding this. To change my camera angle, I'm doing something weird. I'm getting real down low. Or maybe I'm getting way up high. And it could be just exaggerating this, but you could also just come from about this high up if you want. It's like taking a picture of a person, but it's at one angle where it's like you're looking mostly at their forehead rather than their face, and their shoes basically disappear behind the rest of their body. That's a change in point of view. If you're doing a picture of somebody and your like picture is like straight up their nostril, again, it's an interesting point of view. Or you might have someone who's like holding some like, I don't know, a trumpet, and you're like looking down the trumpet instead of really at their face. You're not drawing it so that you're like seeing them from the side and you can see the whole thing and it's fancy. You're like looking up the trumpet and like they're way in the back somewhere. That's a change in point of view. So, we're coming over here again. I'm gonna go ahead and take this area and I'm gonna split it in two. So, roughly there. I'm going to draw 2 points of view here. This one is my normal point of view. In normal point of view, if I'm drawing, say, a cube, nothing special about it. It's just a regular cube. It doesn't look interesting or strange in any way, and that's a-okay. He's a regular guy. Nah. We're going to look at irregular point of view. So what I'm going to do for my irregular point of view is I'm going to take this corner of my box and I'm going to make it so that my camera is looking really high up at the corner of my box. So this corner of my box is where my camera is going to be looking. I can't really see the top of my box, so that means it's going to kind of go like this. I'm going to have that center. I'm going to have top of my box about like so. I'm going to have the bottom of my box coming out way wide. I'm going to put the edge of my table on the bottom of my box. I'm like this. Waha. Maybe just barely put it. And what this does is it gives it this look like I'm looking up at it from below. So my camera is very low for this particular kind of angle. And what this does, as far as principles of designs are concerned, is it's really pounding in emphasis. When you have an irregular point of view, it becomes incredibly clear what you're focusing on in a picture. It is emphasizing your focal point. Now, this kind of thing does take a little bit of practice to do, which is why it is one of our more difficult compositional rules, but you can definitely do this anytime you take a photo. If it's not for art class, doesn't matter. If you're taking a photo and you're changing where the camera is so it's not just your regular eye level, you can get this to happen. Super easy. All right, the next one that we're going to talk about is background control. Background control is exactly what it sounds like. You're going to be taking control of the background by blurring it or fuzzing it. Blur or fuzz the background. This makes details stand out. And you'll see it in movies sometimes if they have some object or another. In this case, I'm going to draw myself a cube. And you're supposed to focus in on that object in particular, like really hard. Then they will have usually a lot of detail on that object. So in this case, I'm going to draw myself like a cracking little cube. It's got some cracks in it. I've got lots of little details and all of that. It's got some scuff marks, and maybe there's like a weird, like, you know, something going on. Crack, all of that. This is a very detailed object. It's got a lot of information, some more scuffs. Something's going on here. This guy's been through the wars. I don't know, maybe he's got a little flower like sticking out. Concrete, yeah. We've got something going on over here. And all the stuff that's closest to us got lots of like gritty details. Oh, look, there's this wood table, blah, blah, blah. But once we get to the background, if we had the background in the same level of detail, it would start to get overwhelming, not only to draw, but to look at. If you had a billion bits of information all thrown in your brain all at once, it gets very overwhelming. So what you can do is you can take the background and you can just sort of fuzz it out, which isn't to say that you don't have a background at all. Maybe I want the background to have like some leaves. I'm going to draw them very lightly. You'll see why in a second. We've got these little leaf shapes back here. Maybe there's like some plants. And like, they don't not exist, but we don't want them to be super important. So we find ways to make them less important. So for example, I'm going to come in and I'm going to shade my background. And the area between my leaves is going to be darker. But I'm also not being super careful about their edges. I need to be careful about my edges of my actual object, but of the leaves, not really, because I don't want them to be super important. I want them to kind of be there and kind of not. I'm letting myself kind of go over their edges some. It doesn't really matter that much. And then I can come in on top of my actual leaves and I can shade them a little bit lighter. But it's fuzzy and distinct. Their edges disappear a little bit. They're kind of blending in with their background some. They exist, but they're not really there because they're not as important. I'm gonna come in and add a few more bits and bobs. Something like this. Background control. And again, this is the same principle as our previous right here of emphasis. It helps our main thing stand out when the details of the stuff behind it is a little bit blurred or fuzzy. They become less important because we can't see them as well. Literally, we can't see them as well. that's background control. And the last one in this set is gonna be layers. Again, these two are a little bit more difficult. This one goes back to being just a smidge on the easier side. And layers is kind of like shadow puppets or like shadow boxes. You have a layer of something, a layer of something, a layer of something. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna have a foreground, a middle ground, and a background. The foreground, which is spelled like forehead. Foreground is the stuff that's near you, the closest stuff. So I'm going to draw myself some object to be in my foreground. It's going to be a box. Foreground. I'm going to give it like a little hill to be sitting on, something like that. Foreground. Beautiful. That is not the right highlighter, but oh well, it's going to be what it is. Oh, that's so bright. All of my foreground sits right here, in this space closest to me. Middle ground is exactly what it sounds like. It's the ground in the middle. So it's stuff in the middle. So say that I have maybe another couple little hills. Maybe one of them has like a little pyramid on it, sure. Middle ground. Now you'll notice also I have multiple layers of middle ground. You can have multiple layers of any of these. So I have this layer that's closest to me. Middle ground is in the middle. Here's another layer that's in the middle. And then farthest away, I have the background. You've heard the word background before. You know what it means. It's the stuff at the back. So in this case, it's the stuff far away. Say that I have a big old cone back here. Sure, massive. What a mountain. I have a few more mountains behind, way far away. This is the stuff very far from you. So again, there are multiple layers. This one has 4 layers in it. You could have 6, 10, 12, however many layers you want, but they're all going to be categorized to one of 3 places. The foreground that's close to you, the middle ground that's a little bit further away, and the background that's really far away from you. All right, so hopefully that is useful to you, and we will be back for our last set another day.